So your new customer CPA is rising or your CAC is rising. You kind of get new customer efficiency down to the previous levels. Something is going wrong from an acquisition perspective. And in this video, I'm going to go into the most common problems that I've seen and most common fixes, spending multiple hundred thousands per month in ad spend across Meta, and obviously being a media buyer and a growth strategist myself in a top agency, and being obviously a growth strategist. And again, there's some things that I'm learning, actively spending money. So I hope you find this valuable. And of course, if you're new to the channel, I'm talking all about how you can scale your brand to 7 and 8 figures. Feel free to watch some of the other content I have in the description, as well as some of the free trainings that I have below. Thanks a lot. Let's actually dive into it. So the first thing here is going to be creative messaging. This is one of the most common issues, alongside those other two, I would say, that we are going to see in a second. Basically, what I've seen is most brands, they've reached a decent scale with a very specific creative strategy, how it works, but after a point they hit a kind of ceiling. And the main reason why is we're not really expanding into new angles, and we're not really leaning into that more problem unaware segment of the audience. So people who don't even know they have a problem, or we need to do a bit more education around the problem and why it is a very important problem and why we have the solution for that. Basically, we need to reach for the cold audiences, and typically what you see is going to have a lot of typically what you see at this stage inside the account is you are going to have a lot of statics, a lot of videos that are very product oriented or very problem solution oriented. So you're probably going to have the same kind of visuals as well, and really pushing heavily on that product, discount, offer, and hard benefits. Whereas we need to start expanding into unlocking new angles through research. So going to Reddit, for example, is a great place to find new angles, or through TikTok or whatever, where the customer is hanging out, and see those angles or those pockets of angles. So you might obviously have the 3 or 4 core angles nailed down, but it's also how we can get more niche pain points through research. So you might, for example, have a supplements that it helps with, which helps with, for example, recovery, but you can get more niche. It's like how you can fight, let's say, leg cramps after running, for example, something that, for example, our customer is dealing with, but we're not really talking about addressing this on a creative perspective. And it's super important because, again, this builds the connection with the customer. It builds the angle that we really know what's going on inside the market and our market. That's why we have created a specific solution for them. And the other thing, like I said, is getting into the unaware messaging. So great ways to do that is through VSLs, video sales letter, basically talking to the camera and going through a storyline. Those are typically a bit more high production. For example, you can do a VSL with an authority figure if you're, example, in any shape or way or form into the supplement space, for example, or basically any space that an authority figure like a scientist, pharmacist, doctor can actually help out here. Not just staying on that, you can just educate overall. It can be just creators that are educating through their own personal story on, like, say, how they've battled, say, and just picking on the previous example, the battle, or they kind of dealt with those leg cramps, or they dealt with like recovery after running for long periods of time. And the other great way is founder stories. Again, I see more brands doing it now, which is great. This, if you nail it down and if you actually execute it correctly, it's gonna be just completely, you're gonna end up in a completely different scenario in terms of new customer growth, and basically in terms of like where you're scaling inside the account. Number 2 is gonna be creative diversification, which is a thing that it was important, but now it's even more important with the Android update. Again, if you don't know about the Android update, please see this video that I've done here. Essentially what it is the model now that Meta optimizes. It went from if this then that kind of model, logical model. If someone is male and has an interest in running, I'm gonna give him running ads, into a more the best guess kind of scenario. It has a lot more data now, a lot more computing power. So in theory, the more distinct content that we can give Meta, the more that it can reach new audiences and find the perfect ad for the perfect kind of people or person. So the thing that I also see, which is kind of in line with the previous thing, is how we can get new formats, new ideas, or how we can repackage the winning ideas into the ad account and into new concepts. And how we do this is very, very simple, but very also hard to do. So basically now what we need is more distinct volume of ads, so more strategic volume of ads, not just volume, strategic volume. So focus on, for example, getting the first step is focus on those top ads to reduce obviously CAC. We mentioned, let's get those new angles or unaware kind of, concepts down, like a VSL education angle, founder story, as the first step to reduce CAC. On the second here, it's going to be focus on iterating on the top ads by bringing new distinct elements into it. So you're going to take your top ads and you're going to see, kind of, for example, change those hooks, kind of make them distinctly different. So maybe the hook now is a selfie style hook. Maybe we can turn this into a different background. For example, we basically have the same messaging, but it's like outside on like a park or whatever. Or can we make this into more, into like a question, or maybe leading with a different kind of pain point, but it's still pretty much the same angle. There's always that we can take a winning ad and just turn it into multiple without obviously needing to do a lot of reshooting and everything. And the most important thing is obviously taking that winning ad and messaging into new personas, how we can basically talk to our customers in a different way, and what exactly are we looking to achieve from a motivation perspective. What's the main thing that we are basically solving here? The other more practical thing is obviously see your spend breakdown in the account, see what spend is going it going into statics, is it going into videos. Then basically how you can really do this is through the placement. So for example, if you're over indexing into feeds and Meta is pivoting most of the spend into feeds rather than reels, probably going to have more statics in general, obviously. And see ways that you can get, for example, the same ad, the same winning ad into from a static to a video, from a UGC to a high production video, to a static, and all these obviously you can create a lot of different variations basically. And really think about how these next tests that I'm learning. So and really think about how this next test that I'm doing is going to fueling that diversification process in the future. So I might test, for example, a completely different background. This is a great insight to have into, okay, what actually has worked from the test and taking it to the next batch. One of the other most common things that I see that can actually help instantly, because obviously the other one, it requires some element of obviously going into the creative team, getting the production done. I mean, most of the iteration, I think you can do this in a few days and it will have a great impact, probably much bigger impact. But some of the stuff are actually quite obvious, is around budget allocation. Like I see both from a channel perspective, but also from more granular within each channel, that we're basically spending inefficiently. And what I basically mean is, first of all, from a channel perspective, most of the bulk of spend should be on Meta. But there are ways there are times that I've seen spends being more pivoted into like a new channel, or like Google, for example, which is not that efficient or that scalable from a new customer perspective as well. So it's making sure we have the correct budget allocation. Usually recommend 60-70% of the budget being on Facebook, and then Google, then maybe a few minor sentences into new channels. And then the most common mistake that I see, and I actually just seen this on an audit that I did, going into Meta and see where is it going to be most of your spend allocation, because the odds are that the spend allocation will be maybe on like a few ads that have really carried the account. So we really need to see, okay, do we still have those? Do we still have all the spend in those few ads? If that, are those fatiguing and probably leading to a very high new customer CPA number? Because this is one of the most common that I see. And then the next logical question is how we can get other ads that probably have lower spend but decent new customer metrics and isolate them a bit more. Maybe we launch them into a separate ad set, maybe we launch them into a separate campaign, and then we try to phase out those other winners and we try to shift more spend into something that is new, basically, that can lead into new customer growth. And the other things here is, am I spending too much on testing? I recently did see a scenario that obviously testing, and I like, if you've seen any other videos, I like to scale my testing campaign as well, if it does well. Obviously on those high, and as you obviously get more complex in terms of setup, as you scale, and obviously you increase your creative testing volume, is that creative testing campaign is going to be very volatile as well. So make sure, for example, one quick fix is here, make sure you batch your creative uploads. So maybe you do once or twice a week, maybe on a Tuesday and Thursday. Don't cause too much volatility on that creative testing campaign, which is probably going to have a decent amount of budget. And that obviously will help with new customer CPA as well. And then obviously make sure you're optimizing very, very thoroughly. Are there any ads, campaigns, again, within targets that we compete with spend towards? And obviously the obvious things, are there any campaigns, products that we're running that really are causing the whole new customer CPA to rise, and what we can do about that, which is back to creative and then budget allocation. Now next, going to be exclusions. Again, it's one of the most easy, practical, quick things that you can do. Most of the time, it's not going to be the issue. Have a think and see on your breakdown within Meta, are we basically spending money on reaching new customers, or is Meta still spending the money to existing? Because they maybe need to do some stricter work on exclusion. So we may need to get some Klaviyo audience if we haven't already, which I think best practice, or at least, get a bit more strict in terms of the exclusions. You may want to add some, let's say, view content, some auto cartridges as well, or some video views, for example, or something probably gonna help force Meta to basically deliver ad. Again, it's not usually the case, worth checking always. Last, but definitely not least, is going to be the suboptimal account structure. Now, this is probably more important, that this basically can get up to here, but I'm assuming, obviously we're having, a decent account structure, and again, the main thing is new customer acquisition. In case we don't, again, this is how we basically fix that. We need to have a consolidated account structure, not too many ad sets. We focus on one testing, on a scaling campaign initially, focus on really testing, making those learnings there, and promoting to a core scaling campaign, and really follows best practices in the creative testing specifically. Having 5 to 15 ads, probably towards that 15 ads mark under each ad set. Allow enough spend to exit learning phase. We want to obviously have below 30%, I'd say. I did even 20% stacking learning within the whole account. So make sure we have consolidated approach. Again, creative testing, scaling campaign. Make sure we give Meta what it needs to basically find our customers. There you have it. This is how I like to go about the action steps to decreasing my new customer CPA. Obviously, improving my new customers and the new customer volume is super important to grow the business, and make sure we're optimizing for new customers, because you may get that ROAS high, but that doesn't mean it is the new customer ROAS figure. And if we don't have, a great velocity in terms of new customers, the business will die at one point. Feel free to watch some of the other content I have below. You check out the free resources that I have. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching this. Hope you found this valuable.